103 Desire and the State, an interpretation of Hegel's philosophy of law. The German idealist philosopher. Hegel 17,701,830 brought the question of desire or want to the forefront in the context of modern society in his book The Philosophy of Law. Hegel's philosophy of law is a massive work of sociology and state philosophy that synthesizes law, morality, and humanity into a system of law. Hegel was the first philosopher to philosophically grasp the realm and importance of economics, an area that conventional philosophers had not seen. The book, Young Hegel by Guy Lukács, is a famous historical study of the development of Hegel's philosophy. The subtitle of the book is The Relationship Between Dialectics and Economics. Lukács sees Hegel's dialectics as a philosophical grasp of the kernel of modern economics, meaning that Hegel philosophically grasped the development of capitalism in his time, and its academic expression, modern economics. Hegel's concept of humanity is not easily understood. It's not just ethics or morality, which is called Sittlichkeit in German and ethical life in English. Morality refers to principles of behavior. In contrast, the basic meaning of the concept of humanity is community. Humanity deals with human beings beyond the level of the individual human beings as a collective. Therefore, humanity includes the family, civil society, and the state. Moving from morality to humanity is an important principle of Hegel's philosophy of law. In this context, humanity includes economic life. Economic life is what Hegel refers to as civil society. Furthermore, humanity encompasses modern economic life, which is capitalism. From this perspective, Hegel's philosophy of law encompasses jurisprudence, morality, and economics. In this broadcast, we will focus on desire and economic activity in the context of humanity. One modern civil society and the system of desire. Hegel discusses civil society in the third part of his philosophy of law, humanity. Hegel's civil society, in other words, is a society of free citizens who are no longer governed by a caste system. Hegel first sees civil society as an economic society. It emphasizes capitalist elements i.e. desire as the principle of economic activity. This is why Hegel's philosophy of law is so relevant to this day. What makes it even more fascinating is that this activity of desire is sandwiched between morality and the state. Hegel's concept of civil society is illuminated through the concept of desire. Traditionally, human needs are viewed as the purpose of state formation. For example, when person A farms and person B makes clothes, there is a barter between the two. And it is because of these things that society and the state are necessary. Desire is the essence of capitalist society, and Hegel was the first to identify it at the level of philosophy. So when we talk about civil society, we're talking about the human side of a capitalist economy. The concept of desire or need, which is the most characteristic feature of capitalism, is also not simple. It is seen as a system in which citizens with desires that humans have because they are animals, such as appetite and sexual desire, engage in labor and other economic activities to fulfill those desires. And furthermore, it reveals that desires are not just given instinctively, but are sometimes shaped through culture and society. In other words, my desires are also determined through others or communities. He then goes on to discuss the judicial system to regulate such economic and market activities, and the need for administrative organizations and professional unions to control these activities, more specifically and efficiently. Let's look at Hegel's text. 188 Introduction. Civil society includes three elements. The satisfaction of the individual's needs mediated by his own labor, and the labor and needs of all others, the system of needs. B. The reality of the universal thing called freedom, which is included in the system of needs, i.e. the protection of property by the judicial system. C. The work of welfare administration and professional groups, which endeavor to promote special interests to the common good. Taking into account the contingencies that remain in the system of needs. Hegel, Philosophy of Law. Translated by Seokjin Lim, 365. It is especially the apart that is of interest to us here. Are the means to protect or regulate a. In particular, the welfare administration is called the Police in German. In other words, we need a judicial system to maintain the desires of individuals and the economic life to satisfy them. We also have administrations, police, etc., to regulate the negative things that lurk in the system of desires. Bad desires are described above as contingencies that linger in the system of desires. In other words, desires are not always right. When desires cross the line, they become crimes. 2. The interaction of desires. Our desires are connected to the desires of others. Only when others work hard to pursue their desires will my desires be satisfied. We use the desires of others to fulfill our own desires. This is the principle of capitalism, the market economy. You work to earn money to support yourself. But you need to use that money to buy goods, and almost all goods are made by other people. Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations, which Hegel studied in detail, describes this. In The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith, the father of economics, explained that the greed of the manufacturers is what keeps me satisfied. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker, but from their interest in making money, that we can expect our dinner. We appeal to their self-love, not their philanthropy. We speak to them only of their interests, not of our needs. In other words, my greed is fulfilled because of the greed of others. Hegel says that my desires and the desires of others are mediated, connected. This is a characteristic of capitalist economies. In this way, my desires and needs are bound up with the desires and needs of others. This is sometimes referred to as the invisible hand, and the idea that individuals not only fulfill their needs or wants, but also coordinate them, which means that their wants or needs include not only absolute necessities, such as eating and drinking, but also other hobbies, special tastes, luxuries, and fashions. This idea of the coordination of desires follows the father of economics. According to Adam Smith, the desire for necessities is limited, while the desire for conveniences is unlimited. In his book, The Wealth of Nations, he describes two categories of goods with very different properties. He divides goods into necessities and luxuries, stating luxuries is almost unlimited. Hegel also says that our desires are conditioned or fulfilled through the fulfillment of other people's desires. 3. The infinity and variety of desires and the production of desires. Hegel points out that human needs or desires can be infinite, unlike those of animals. Animals are limited in the scope of their desires and the means to fulfill them. For example, lions are fierce beasts, but when they are full, they no longer hunt. Animals are extremely monotonous in the way they fulfill their natural desires. For example, animals are either carnivores or vegetarians, but humans can eat anything. This is called the universality of human desires. Human desires are infinite and endless in variety. Because of their mental nature, the scope of human desires is indeterminate, and the means of fulfilling them can be infinitely developed. That's why we often say, desires are endless. Even if I have a more comfortable and wealthy life than others, I'm not satisfied with it, and I want more comfort and wealth. Another characteristic of human desires is that we are not satisfied with our existing desires, but we discover new ones, and we subdivide and specialize our desires. This can be seen, for example, in the variety and infinite changes in the design and function of clothes or shoes. Hegel speaks of this directly. Desire and its forms of satisfaction. 190. Satisfaction of desire in man and animals. Man as the formalization of freedom. Animals have a limited range of means and ways of fulfilling their needs, and they fulfill their needs with the same limited range of means and ways. Man, too, is in this state of dependence, but at the same time he demonstrates that he has transcended this dependence and entered into a state of communality. This is demonstrated in man, first, by the diversification of the means of desire, and then, by the further specialization and abstraction of desire through the subdivision of concrete needs into individual parts or aspects. Hegel, Philosophy of Law 368. The subdivision, specialization, and abstraction of needs means that the techniques and the arts to satisfy human desires are developing. For example, humans have a desire to eat fish, and the art or skill of satisfying that desire develops. But the art and skill of cooking fish keeps developing. The technology and art of the cooking method develops infinitely. The abstraction of desire eventually leads to the progression from nature to culture. But this infinite amplification of desire also has negative consequences. Even though Hegel lived in the early 19th century, he could already see the contradictions of 21st century society. In mass society, even individual desires are often economically exploited and manipulated through advertising and mass media. In this context, Hegel is pioneering in pointing out the ills of commerce and capitalist culture through the amplification of desire. Further, what the English call comfortable is something that is hardly understood and is so called without bottom or end. For no matter how comfortable it may be, it may again reveal some discomfort, and so on and so forth. In this sense, desires are not generated by those who desire the thing themselves, but rather by those who would benefit from its arising. Philosophy of Law 370. It means that the primordial nature of desires disappears, and desires themselves are created as material civilization and market economy develop. In particular, with the recent development of the Internet and electronic technology, various desires that did not exist before have been created. With the spread of TVs and cell phones, countless hobbies and desires have emerged, and the spread of YouTube videos has amplified a huge number of hobbies. Or, as new cosmetics and other products are developed, desires are created to match them. As Hegel said, these needs are not primordial, but mediated through society. In this sense, needs become subdivided and specialized, and even their meaning becomes ambiguous, as seen in the case of comfort, which means that we may not even know what is comfortable. In other ways, desires are not limited to the instinctual, but can be infinite. As mentioned above, desires are created by people or companies who want to profit from the creation of new desires. For example, the creation of YouTube has created countless needs, or the launch of Facebook has created a need for Facebook that didn't exist before. These needs are not natural needs such as appetite, sex, or sleep, but created needs, new needs. In this capitalist society, countless new desires are created every day. 4. From desire to labor. Above, Hegel revealed the concept of desire under capitalism. Marketism. Human desire has an infinite part. It is said that the fulfillment of our desires depends on the desires of others. Now we will look at the issue of labor as a means to fulfill those desires. B. Forms of labor. 196. Labor as a mediator of desires and the means of satisfying them. Labor is the mediating agent for the procurement of the proper and equally proper means for the satisfaction of a particularized desire. Labor processes the materials provided directly by nature through complex processes for various purposes. This formative action gives value and rationality to the means of satisfying needs, so that what man consumes is primarily the product of human production, and what man consumes is the product of human effort. Philosophy of Law 374. The compartmentalization of needs is a feature of human desires, especially after the Industrial Revolution and the formation of capitalist economies. For example, how many different types of alcohol are there? Desires are subdivided, and the means to fulfill them are subdivided accordingly. For the sake of segmentation of wants, labor is also segmented. Labor is a skill, and this skill gives it value and rationality. Rationality means that it served a purpose. In English, it's called utility. What human beings consume is primarily the product of human production, and what human beings consume is the product of human effort. This means that human consumption is not the harvesting of natural things, but the buying and selling of human-made and processed things on the market. This is also related to the division of labor. Hegel calls this the abstraction of labor, and says that, at the same time, people depend on and relate to each other in order to satisfy the needs of others. Philosophy of Law 375. As labor becomes more abstract, it becomes more mechanized until at the end of the day, human beings are exploited by labor and machines take their place. It's amazing that this was already happening in Hegel's time. In our time, robotization, automation, AI, etc. are causing humans to be exploited by machines even more. Many jobs can be eliminated and created as new production methods are introduced. 5 personal desires and labor create the common good. Through the analysis of desires, Hegel reveals that in principle, my desires are mediated by the desires of others. This actually reflects Adam Smith's laissez-faire economics. That is, individuals working hard for their own happiness accumulates social wealth. Therefore, it is best for the development of the country to allow individuals to engage in economic activities as freely as possible. Hegel expresses this fact as follows. Property. 199. The division of social production. In the above interdependent relation between labor and the satisfaction of needs, subjective self-interest is called to contribute to the satisfaction of the needs of all. In this dialectical movement, in which the particular is mediated by the universal, what each acquires and enjoys for himself becomes at the same time production and acquisition for the enjoyment of others. The totalized state of production and enjoyment in which all are dependent on all becomes a common and enduring property for each, which enables everyone to participate in it according to his bridges and skills and to secure his own sustenance. And what each man acquires by his own labor maintains and increases this common property. Legal Philosophy 376. The idea that subjective self-interest is called to contribute to the satisfaction of the wants of all does not come easily to young people entering a competitive society. These days, we hear a lot about endless competition, in a reality where it is difficult to find a job and get married. My selfishness seems to be different from social wealth. Social wealth seems to be reserved for those at the top. Nevertheless, the principle of aligning subjective self-interest with the public good lies at the bottom of a competitive society. If self-interest and the public good are inconsistent, then we don't need to work hard to live well. Countries in South America that are currently seething with social corruption and poverty lose this belief, which is why so many young people jump into the drug business. If we think that the property of society is independent of me, then such a society will be a society full of lawlessness and injustice. Therefore, a society that calls subjective self-interest as contributing to the fulfillment of the needs of all is a society in which the whole and the part match. In other words, if I work hard, it benefits others as well. So, as much as I work, I am rewarded. For example, there are people who catch cows or pigs and bone them, and by honing their skills, they earn money and provide good meat for consumers. Or there are singers who sing well and earn a lot of money and provide great joy to others. In any case, the alignment of self and other interests is the foundation of capitalist society. Hegel calls it the dialectical movement in which the particular is mediated by the universal, so that what each one acquires and enjoys for himself becomes at the same time what he produces and acquires for the enjoyment of others. However, we usually see the pursuit of special interests and the universal good as opposed to each other. Selfishness is opposed to altruism, and individual selfishness is opposed to social service. But Adam Smith's laissez-faire economics and Hegel's philosophy of law see them as fundamentally the same. This phenomenon is also called dialectic by Hegel, which means that things that are opposites on the outside are the same on the inside, such as the logic that a person who makes a lot of money by making good products is a patriot, An entrepreneur who makes a lot of money and creates jobs for a lot of workers is a patriot. In that sense, Hegel writes, what each one has acquired by his own labor maintains and increases this common property. The wealth of a nation is only the sum total of the wealth of individuals. In this sense, it is wrong to expect too much from the state. This liberalism is not the same as monarchism, where the state is the king, or communism, where the state feeds the people. That's why Hegel called the state a system of desires. Of course, civil society is a prestige of state formation or the foundation of the state.